So GameStop have just bought a lot of Bitcoin, nearly 5,000 of them. And Trump Media Company is starting to look a lot more at raising capital to buy cryptocurrency. And Ethereum, they have a lot of people looking to buy it now, weirdly. But what's happening? This cycle is about to get a little bit more interesting. Now we're seeing more and more money getting bounded around. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because this happened in the last cycle. It was a bit off the cuff, and it was that catalyst that sent things a little bit higher for quite some time, if you remember. Tesla buying, for example. Now, smash the like button if you like this sort of thing, but ultimately, let me know what you're watching. Which company do you think is going to happen next? Or do you think there's going to be more ETFs coming? Now, this is pretty crazy news when you think about it. Now, GameStop, traditionally not amazing as a company, but as a thing around money and investment and, Wall Street bets, absolute cult hero in terms of how it changed the narrative massively of companies investing in assets, therefore then getting popular, if that makes sense, right? However, thus being said, this is a very interesting situation. One, we don't know how much they actually paid for it, but the fact that they have purchased that many is quite a lot. And I'm going to showcase why that's quite a lot in a minute. The big thing with this is obviously, you can see there on the screen, it's very clear. The stock price jumped massively. And this is the situation we found ourselves with MicroStrategy, even mining stocks in the past, GameStop. We've seen other companies do this, and it creates that speculation and that fuel, enabling people to get interested in the fact that their company, so to speak, is proactive in the future because cash is trash, so to speak, right? So this is an important thing. But when we talk about corporate treasuries going cryptocurrency crazy a little bit, I didn't expect that to ever happen. And we talk about how much 4,000 or nearly 5,000 Bitcoin is. This is not the best bit of data in the world, I'll be openly honest. It's on CoinGecko, it's publicly held companies, it's not fully up to date, but you can kind of get an idea of where it plonks itself, pretty much nearly in the top 10. And the only ones that are above that realistically are mining companies from a long, long time, Metaplanet, who have been pretty proactive in buying, and the likes of Coinbase, etc. Right? The reality is here, the more companies that look to have an alternative to cash, using Bitcoin is going to be good. We want that dilution. We want that spread of companies to do it because, I'll be honest, I'll say it now, I do not want to see the likes of MicroStrategy, for example, hoarding it. 2.74%? No, I want more and more companies to do this personally. But it's a little bit different to the past when you think about it in obvious terms. The situation is here. This is like kind of a bit more, as I said before in previous videos, if you've watched me, validation and, legitimizing Bitcoin as an option if something goes wrong, for example. Now, I often twine about Mr. Trump in terms of his mouth openings about tariffs and ruining my trades, so to speak. But this, again, raising $2.5 billion for Bitcoin treasury strategy, using and utilizing his own platform, is relatively big. Like, $2.5 billion's a decent chunk of money to start off with. Now, with this situation, obviously, we're looking at to create a Bitcoin treasury. The company said it secured agreements with about 50 institutional investors for 1.5 billion common stocks and 1 billion in convertible notes. It's pretty much happening. It's pretty much there. So this will be interesting to watch. Obviously, when this came out, it somewhat kind of crushed the market in terms of sentiment for a little bit. It kind of just went, If you think about what happened on Friday, talked about tariffs. If you think about when he announced this on Monday, pretty much, it's been a bit flat since. So I feel like there's still some uncertainty in the market, but ultimately things are gearing up, which is important to know. But the ironic thing about all this is the obvious in the room. This is a man who hated Bitcoin. He talked about it, and we don't want to be in bed with politics. We don't, right? But ultimately, things do change and people's opinions change. It's just ironic that now he may want to stack it. And we know he's done some good for crypto. He used the cryptocurrency kind of platform as part of his presidential campaign. Whether that works in the long run, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, it's an interesting point. So yeah, so much for Bitcoin being a scam, so to speak. But there you go. It's obviously changed. If you want to learn from me, by the way, free trial. 30 days you get, and you can get all the lessons, all the content, all the indicators, the lot. Jump in. Now let's talk about the Senate, the US Senate, and all of this sort of confusing stuff is a speculative element of the 1 million Bitcoin National Reserve. And I'm going to go back on what I said before. I don't want there to be 1 million in the hands of the US government. I think it's unlikely that this is going to happen. I don't think it'll pass, personally. But the fact that they're discussing it is remotely bullish in an obvious sense. It's there. But the problem, as you know, you don't want to have one entity with 1 million. We've already got Satoshi with 1 million. Yes, it could create some buying pressure, but ultimately, who knows? Who knows? Most of that could be taken from crime proceedings, for example, from the past, as you know. Now, this is an interesting point. Joseph Lubin is, or was, or whatever, the co-founder and one of the builders of Ethereum. He's looking to raise capital for 425 million for an Ethereum treasury strategy. This is very, very interesting because we talk about Ethereum as how laggy it is, and we'll come on to the analysis in a minute. But ultimately, this could create a bit of a spark. The ETF for Ethereum has been very lackluster. It hasn't done anything of any interest, which is a bit of an issue. So with that situation, we've got to kind of see if this is going to change. But obviously, it's joining the increasing number of microcap companies trying to mimic the success of MicroStrategy, as I alluded to before. A lot of companies are trying to do this. And what it does is it does create that speculative element around their stock price, and then they can use that as collateral to then buy more and more, and they get wealthier over time. It's a little bit naughty, but it works. Volatility as well. It creates volatility, and that creates trading opportunities. But this is probably just the beginning for the likes of the ETF on Ethereum, if this all happens, obviously, to start getting a bit of a leg up for the first time ever. Because people will probably get interested in the fact that people are buying Ethereum for once. Now, the reason why this is important for Ethereum holders like yourself, if you're watching this, is we are at absolute critical lows. We've bounced off the bottom, obviously, but we are at the EMA 21 on the weekly time frame, trying to see if we get above it and recapture some of these areas. Still very, very ugly. Still not looking great. But it may well change with a bit more interest. And again, if you look at this in the USD prices, it's not looking great neither, but ultimately it has changed somewhat of the character in this move and looking a lot better. But when you think about the fact that Bitcoin is $100,000+ and Ethereum is at here, you know it's undervalued technically. So maybe it won't lag forever. Now, we're talking about ETFs of Ethereum being a bit lackluster, and it has been. We've also got to talk about the potential future offerings of more ETFs. Now, there has been some rumorings, and I want to go through a couple in a minute, but this is the most up-to-date information we have on 21 Shares have filed another Dogecoin ETF, which is interesting, but they have got some, changes to it, which is a bit more interesting, so to speak. This is the thing how accidentally traditional market news sources and whatever will create a bit of hype, and they will accidentally pump things by accident because people are interested for once. And that's the thing that happens, right? Hasn't happened yet, but if you start getting more and more rumors, look at what happened with Ethereum. When Ethereum was rumored to be having it, it was doing really well. And then once it launched, it obviously nuked from $4,000, right? We haven't even recovered that yet. So be mindful of that situation because that could happen. But when we look at this, there's a lot of things that are happening here. Obviously, we've got that situation, and then we've got the likes of this. This is an old article, by the way, but you've got XRP, you've got Dogecoin, you've got Solana and Litecoin, for example, right? And these are kind of the dates here. And this is from an older article, but they have actually been delayed, and they're going to be put a bit back as well. So there hasn't actually been an actual decision on these yet, which makes you wonder, okay. However, any amendments that do come in, you'll start to notice that have been quite good because they are listening and they're doing the amendments, because why not? Right? The situation is very clear. We do not know how good these will be, right? But it's obviously an opening. We've seen huge success, in my opinion, on the Bitcoin ETF, which at the minute is here. Let me just press the refresh button, because what does happen is you see a lot of buying, and it's already at the all-time highs of the total accumulative flow in USD, which is pretty big, really, when you think about it. Now, what this is cash settlement. It's an easier gateway for people to do it. But as I've alluded to it, the Ethereum one has been very, very, very shit versus Bitcoin, for example, right? That could all change. But it's offering a choice, it's offering an opportunity for people to do it in a much easier fashion. And it also allows companies to do the same thing. And if you want to buy through that, they can. And another big bit of money flowing around is Solana. Strategic filing of preliminary base shelf prospectus to raise 1 billion to buy Solana. Now, this is obviously MicroStrategy. Yeah, it's a Vancouver-based company focused on growth and development of the Solana network. It's mad, this. $1 billion is a lot of money to be thrown into an altcoin like Solana, for example. And when you think about how many tokens and coins or whatever they're going to have for that, and then to utilize that for further ecosystem strategical growth, what? So yeah, this is one to keep an eye on. Obviously, Solana is one of the ones that are quite tradable. It's quite an interesting one to look at. But ultimately, you got to look at the dominance of it. Will Solana eventually surpass Ethereum? Maybe. And something that is going under the radar is the fact that the macro side of it and the consumer confidence and the recession fears are down. The S&P is going back up to where it was before the tariff news. The macro information and news and articles, whatever, is helping for once. Not in all fronts, some not the best, but the likes of the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq doing really well is a really interesting point. Even if I put this on the live data, so to speak, right? That's where we are right now. The Russell 2000 is going back up to these levels of interest again, which is good. So that could be a very, very interesting spark. As I've alluded to it, like, the Wall Street starting to crawl back up, where is it? US tech is doing really well too. So when we talk about the tariff news, the information around all this, V-shaped recovery, are we going to melt up and go even higher, which could allow more money flow to go into the market? And the final thing to mention is the fact that gold is not hurtling to the moon anymore. It's slowing down. So maybe risk on assets is coming for one reason or another, and it may well all start from Wall Street buying, and many things are happening in the cog. And this is why we're probably seeing the likes of the stable currency dominance, for example, in the market for crypto, dropping because existing liquidity is coming back. People are going to take a notice and go, I might well deploy some capital here because it's looking a bit better versus what it was. And the reason why I talk about that is because around this 7th of April was when everything hit the low. And we turned from that point. It just flipped on a sixpence. This is why I trade altcoins now versus, say, invest in them, because it's much easier to navigate the market and not get crushed. But ultimately, you got to take profit at some point when you start to see things ramp up. Bitcoin went from $74,000, for example, to $111,000 pretty quickly. But the final thing, the final warning, is the toxic element of leverage that could be incoming. When we think about all the debt and the convertible elements around all this and the raising of money to buy cryptocurrency assets, it could create a bit of a debt-fueled run. And that sometimes isn't fun if you're at the wrong end of it. Just because, say, your favorite altcoin is mooning or Bitcoin's flying, it doesn't mean you've got to take someone else's credit card to buy it because you're FOMOing in. It's probably the time to take some money off the table. At the end of the day, this is a short-term area to look at, and it could be building slowly. But at the end of the day, we talk about the all-time high of Bitcoin. When it finally goes beyond it, it flies. And we're seeing that with 69,000, the break. We got to 73 for a bit. We dropped off a bit, then we flew off. We've nearly doubled in price. That's mad when you think about it. The reality is very, very simple here. It is building, but don't get hit by the tsunami. Well, could be hitting, because the biggest problem we have with stuff like this, people get far too bullish and they start doing silly things. And the reason why I say that is because we've already seen a trader that's gone from 50 plus million P&L to zero. Sometimes people don't know what they've got until they've lost it, so to speak. So there we go. If you want more alpha, check out the links below to learn in crypto or into my Patreon for extra videos. And more importantly, watch this video here, kind of get the gist of what I look at for altcoins.